From what you are saying, the inferior astral could rank equally with hell, the superior astral with heaven, and the intermediate could represent purgatory. Is that right? Rather, that the concepts of hell, purgatory, and heaven are a completely distorted image of the spiritual reality that I am portraying, to which they bear little resemblance. In effect, all the spirits that have reached the superior astral were previously in the inferior astral and passed through the intermediate astral. And if they got that far, it was because, through their own personal merits, they were spiritually progressing in love, thus increasing their vibratory level and making themselves worthy of living in the regions that they currently occupy. And all the spirits from the inferior astral, when they have sufficiently evolved, will one day end up living in superior astral regions, because this forms part of the process of spiritual evolution. Consequently, there are no places especially created to serve as dungeons. Neither does the suffering that a human being may experience through being in the inferior astral last eternally. But according to what you say, it is correct that the bad ones end up on an inferior astral and that they suffer there. I assent to it? Yes. But not all of those on the inferior astral are necessarily bad. Neither does everyone suffer. Also, the term bad is inexact. It would be better to call those spirits stragglers, as they have only made progress in intelligence but little in love. As I have said previously, primitive spirits live on the inferior astral in the first stages of spiritual evolution as individualized beings and with free will. These primitive spirits do not mix with the stragglers, but rather, being in the same band, group themselves according to their vibratory affinity, living in zones separate from each other. But the primitive spirits are not unfortunate through being on the inferior astral, because it is the habitat that adapts itself to their level. It is the straggler spirits that suffer because, although they don't give love, they are more sensitive to perceiving it than the primitive spirits and suffer on sensing an absence of love. They suffer through living in the company of other beings that are as egoistic as they are. They suffer because they glimpse a better life, and they know that their painful situation is owing to their misuse of their free will for acting against others. I find it hard to imagine what you are saying, so that you can understand the difference between what a straggler spirit and a primitive spirit feels on an inferior astral. I will use an example from your world. Imagine the difference between how a primate and a Western man feels when abandoned in the jungle. Whilst the primate will live perfectly happily and be integrated in a jungle, a Western man, used to the comforts of civilized life, living in the jungle will be a torment, and he will have a very bad time. Why does the inferior astral exist, if it is such a horrible place? Because in the universe there is a place for all beings, from the most primitive up to the most advanced, and on each planet at a similar level to yours, the inferior astral is the home of those beings still taking their first steps in learning about feelings. You also need to take into account that it is not a place specifically created for spirits that have acted against the law of love. And if it is so horrible, it is because they themselves have created the conditions for these places in which they live to be suffocating because of the joint vibration that they give out from their own spiritual baseness, in the same way as a natural area may be converted into a real rubbish tip when colonists who come to inhabit that region have little respect for the environment. Now that we are talking about the spirits from the inferior astral, I am curious. Does the demon or the devil exist? No entity dedicated to causing evil forever exists, and even less with powers of destruction so omnipotent that they are attributed to that supposed devil. The entities that inhabit the inferior astral are spirits that have advanced very little in feelings, and as I have said, this may be because they are still young spirits, or because now, having become more or less old, they have advanced little in developing feelings. Although there are spirits in the inferior astral that may be very intelligent and have used this intelligence to hurt other spirits. If they have not yet developed their feelings, they are not wise, because wisdom derives from the knowledge of feeling, and they are wretched, because they live in egoism and do not know happiness. The envy of the wisdom and happiness that they sense have been attained by the spirits that have overcome egoism and know love, urges them to impede the spiritual progress of their incarnate brothers and sisters with all their might, so that they will not manage to enjoy the happiness that stems from love either. As the saying goes, evil for many is the consolation of fools. So they organize themselves with the aim of obstructing the progress of the disincarnate and bringing supporters into their ranks. But their capacity to act against incarnate beings is quite limited unless the incarnate beings allow themselves to be influenced by them through their own actions. Their expansion is also limited to the lowest vibratory bands, because in order to reach higher bands they should love, and as they refuse to do this, they confine themselves to that level. Then they have the problem of being in constant battles between rival factions, because as a result of their egoism, they all want to be the boss. But sooner or later these spirits will get tired of being bad, because they are extremely unhappy, and endeavor to get out of this situation. That is when they are rescued by spirits from higher levels that have first aid posts in areas close to these inhospitable regions. When we talked about astral travel, you told me that once you are liberated from your body as an incarnate spirit, you can travel to wherever your thoughts lead you almost instantly. That's right, but only on vibratory levels that are compatible with your own level. Does a disincarnate spirit also have the freedom to travel through the different bands of the astral world? The spirits from the superior levels enjoy greater freedom of movement and can go down to inferior levels, although it is as uncomfortable for them as it would be for you to walk through a quagmire. The spirits from the inferior levels cannot rise to superior levels until they manage to raise their vibratory level. This can only be accomplished when they evolve spiritually. So contact between spirits of different levels is always achieved by the most advanced spirit descending to the less advanced region. The spirits that live in the dense areas of the inferior astral have more difficulty moving around their surroundings, appearing almost to live with the same limitations as an incarnate human, because the vibration of the astral matter in this area is so low that it is very similar to physical matter. Conversely, spirits of the superior astral can travel freely, although in order to be able to manifest themselves in the inferior astral and be able to be seen by the inhabitants there would have to adjust their vibration, and this is as hard for them as it is for you to breathe in a room full of smoke. Why does this separation between levels exist? This separation is inherent in the nature of the astral world and stops the less advanced spirits from infiltrating into regions of high vibration, where love reigns, and from causing harm to the inhabitants. Is there some kind of connection between these vibratory bands, or are they completely separate from one another? The separations are not abrupt but rather gradual. Just as the density of the atmosphere gradually diminishes on moving away from the Earth's surface, the same happens with the density of astral matter. The different communities of the astral are connected with one another, and there is movement of spirits, but with the limitation that we have previously indicated. In other words, while the advanced spirits can move freely on their level, and on inferior levels, the less advanced spirits can only reach superior levels by increasing their vibratory level. Through spiritual evolution, the communities from the intermediate astral are helped by the communities from the superior astral. From which they receive spiritual and technical advice in order to organize their communities according to the more advanced spiritual laws. At the same time, missions leave these communities in the intermediate astral to help spirits from the inferior astral that are in a position to leave that vibratory band through having become conscious of the harm they have caused, because they have shown true repentance and the will to improve, and for having requested genuine help to get out of that situation. What do these aid missions consist of specifically? To get an idea, we could say that the communities of more advanced spirits act like a kind of spiritual NGO that go down to help or rescue spirits suffering rather awkward situations. It is like rescuing civilians wounded from bombardment by the ambush of the combatants, or refugees fleeing from regions that are devastated by war, starvation, or natural catastrophes. With this objective, they build hospitals, shelters, and schools in certain regions bordering between the inferior and intermediate astral in order to take care of and re-educate spirits recently rescued from the low vibratory bands. These spirits will spend all the time they need there for their rehabilitation. Once they have recovered, many of them become actively involved in doing the same kind of aid and rescue work for suffering spirits from the inferior astral that they benefited from. This makes them feel that they are useful and a little happier, because it is a way of expressing their thanks for what was done for them, because they really want to help their brothers and sisters from the heart, as they understand perfectly what they are going through, since they have just recently suffered this in the flesh. In this way, they also help themselves, raising their own vibratory pattern with acts of love that they carry out for others. Once they reach the appropriate vibratory level, and if they so wish, they can return to their spiritual homes. If you liked the video, leave a comment and a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and see you in the next video.